You are sitting at a table holding a spoon. You look at it and say the word out loud. Spoon, 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 spoon. After the 8th or 9th repetition, something shifts. The sound coming out of your mouth no longer feels connected to the metal object in your hand. It is just noise. A strange collection of consonants and a vowel that could belong to any language or none at all. The word has become hollow, foreign, empty. You know exactly what is happening because you have felt it before, but you cannot name it. The experience is universal, yet most people never stop to ask what their brain just did. The name is semantic satiation. The term was coined by a psychologist named Leon Jakubowicz in the early 1960s. He was studying how repeated exposure to a word changes the way people experience it. He found that after about 15 to 20 repetitions, the word began to lose its meaning. The effect was not a trick of hearing. The word was still being spoken correctly. The ear still received the sound, but the connection between that sound and the concept it represented had gone slack. The brain had stopped treating the word as a symbol and started treating it as a noise. To understand why, you have to look at how the brain makes meaning in the first place. Every word you know is stored as a bundle of connections. The sound pattern, the visual form if you see it written, the set of related ideas, the sensory memories, the emotional charge. When you hear or say a word, your brain activates that entire bundle. It is a rapid, coordinated firing of neurons across several regions. The first time you say spoon, your brain pulls up the shape, the weight, the feel of metal, the context of eating, the memory of a specific spoon from your childhood kitchen. The second time, it does the same thing, but faster. After enough repetitions, the neurons responsible for that bundle begin to fire less vigorously. This is neural adaptation. It is the same mechanism that lets you stop feeling the pressure of your clothes against your skin within seconds of putting them on. The brain treats constant stimulation as something to ignore. It saves energy by reducing response to unchanging input. For a repeated word, the meaning fades not because the word is damaged, but because the neural circuit that generates the meaning has become fatigued. It stops responding the way it initially did. Leon Jakubowicz confirmed this with a simple experiment. He had participants repeat a word like spoon 30 times in a row, then rate how meaningful the word still felt. The ratings dropped sharply after about 15 repetitions, but the interesting part came next. He asked them to repeat a different word immediately after. The second word did not show the same drop. The fatigue was specific to that particular word. It was not a general exhaustion of the language system. Each word had its own dedicated circuitry, and that circuitry could be worn out independently. Neuroimaging studies have since mapped the neural signature of semantic satiation. When a person repeats a word aloud, the left anterior temporal lobe shows a steady decline in activity. This region is critical for linking sound to meaning. The drop is not caused by boredom or distraction. It is a direct measure of the neural circuit tiring. Electroencephalography, or EEG, reveals a similar pattern. The brain's electrical response to the word weakens with each repetition, especially around 300 milliseconds after hearing it. The timing suggests that the early stages of sound processing remain intact. What fades is the later stage where sound becomes meaning. Not all words satiate equally. Concrete nouns that refer to physical objects tend to lose meaning faster than abstract words. The reason is likely tied to the richness of the associations. A concrete word like spoon has a strong visual and tactile representation. When those sensory components are repeatedly activated, they adapt quickly. An abstract word like justice has no single image or sound or feel attached. Its meaning is built from a web of social and conceptual links that are harder to exhaust. Emotional words also resist satiation. The word love may feel strange after repetition, but its emotional residue lingers longer than the meaning of a neutral object. There is a limit to the effect. Semantic satiation is temporary. Within a few seconds of stopping, the meaning returns. The neural circuit recovers from its fatigue and is ready to fire again normally. This is important because it tells you that the system is not broken. It is a regulatory mechanism. The brain is designed to be sensitive to novelty and to downplay the familiar. That same mechanism lets you ignore the hum of a refrigerator that has been running for hours, then notice immediately when it stops. The world would be overwhelming if every repeated stimulus stayed at full intensity. The recovery is not immediate. It takes about 30 seconds for the original responsiveness to fully restore. During that window, if you repeat the word again, the satiation deepens and the recovery period lengthens. Reaction time studies show the real-world cost. Participants who repeat a word and then immediately read a sentence containing that word are measurably slower to understand it. The meaning is still on hold. This is not a laboratory artifact. It affects how quickly you process language in everyday conversation when a word gets stuck in a loop. Semantic satiation rarely occurs during natural speech because words are never repeated in rapid succession without intervening context. The effect is an artifact of deliberate, isolated repetition. In a sentence, each occurrence of a word appears with different surrounding words, which refresh the semantic context and prevent adaptation. This is why you can read a paragraph containing a dozen instances of the same word without feeling the hollowness. The brain uses context to reset the circuit. Without that reset, the circuit runs down. Not everyone experiences semantic satiation at the same rate. Studies show that older adults show a stronger and longer-lasting effect. This may be related to age-related decline in neural adaptability or slower recovery of firing rates. Bilinguals sometimes show weaker satiation in their less dominant language, perhaps because the neural connections are less established and therefore harder to fatigue. These differences hint that the effect is not purely fixed. It depends on the history of the neural circuitry. A word you have used 10,000 times saturates faster than a word you learned last week. One practical implication of semantic satiation is its use in therapy. In cognitive behavioral therapy, a technique called verbal satiation sometimes helps people reduce the power of a triggering thought. A patient repeats a distressing word over and over until it becomes empty and hollow. The emotional charge dissipates. The word is still the same word, but the automatic reaction has been temporarily short-circuited. This does not cure the underlying issue, but it can give a person a moment of distance from the emotional grip of a word. It turns a loaded symbol back into a neutral sound. Another implication shows up in language learning. When you drill a new foreign vocabulary word by repeating it many times in a row, you may hit a wall where the word suddenly feels meaningless. That is semantic satiation kicking in. It is not a sign that you are forgetting. It is a sign that your brain has temporarily adapted to the repeated input. The best strategy is to stop, do something else for a minute, and then come back. The meaning will have restored. The same fatigue that makes the word feel empty is actually a proof that your brain has started to treat it as familiar. The same effect happens when you look at a written word repeatedly. Stare at the word spoon on a page for 30 seconds. It begins to look misspelled. The letters themselves seem foreign. This is semantic satiation operating through vision rather than hearing. The visual word form area in the brain, a small region that specializes in recognizing written words, adapts to the constant input. The word stops being a symbol and becomes a pattern of lines and curves. Proofreaders know this hazard well. They rely on reading text backward or taking breaks to avoid the illusion that a correctly spelled word is wrong. There is a curious edge case. When you repeat a word long enough, it does not just lose meaning. It can also begin to sound foreign. The phonemes themselves start to feel alien. This is because the brain's processing of speech sounds also undergoes adaptation. The auditory cortex reduces response to repeated sounds. So two kinds of satiation happen at once. The sound feels unnatural and the meaning vanishes. The word becomes a double ghost. It is neither familiar as a sound nor as a symbol. Some researchers have questioned whether semantic satiation is purely neural adaptation or whether it involves conscious expectations. When you know you are repeating a word deliberately, you may start to doubt its correctness. That doubt could contribute to the feeling of hollowness. But experiments with subliminal repetition suggest the effect happens below the level of conscious control. The mechanism is mostly automatic. Your brain does not need your permission to stop meaning the word. It just does. The next time you catch yourself repeating the same word until it sounds broken, stop for a second. You are not experiencing a glitch. You are experiencing the nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do. It is ignoring a constant signal to stay open to change. The word will mean nothing for a few seconds, and then it will come back. The hollow sound is not a loss of meaning. It is the sound of meaning being built in the first place.